Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. It's kind of an interesting week, George, because you got our Monday night games. We've already done our Inside the Command Center show from Friday, but we're still going to be talking about the game. And to do that, we bring in Tailgate Ted. Ted, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Ted, I got to tell you, we've been doing the podcast for a couple of years now and never had an opportunity to talk to you before. It's my fault. I mean, there were no other reason why we couldn't have done it. We like to get to know first timers a little bit. I'm curious how you got into football and how you got into food.
So, football, I played years ago, definitely not at a high level, but had a good time in high school. Went up against the DeMatha boys in WCAC, and my father raised me to be a Washington fan. So, I grew up watching this team and just going to watch games and sitting with him on the couch. And he brought me to my first game at RFK. When I was a kid, we got free tickets. We weren't lucky enough to have season tickets. I went to 2 games at RFK with my dad, and the second I stepped into that hallowed ground, I was hooked. I mean, I just became a fan for life.
Mm. And I know you're big into the culinary scene. How did that form?
So culinarily, I just did a lot of cooking growing up. I mean, I'm Filipino. My Lola, my grandmother, taught me how to cook. And my mother used to always joke, said, you have to find a Filipino woman to cook for you. Well, there weren't a ton of them in my area. So I figured, you know what? I'm just going to learn how to cook this cuisine myself. And next thing you know, I just actually enjoyed cooking. I do it for a job, but I enjoy it way too much. And doing it up at the tailgates up at FedEx, back when it was called that, it started off with a one little tiny hibachi, and a bunch of people would just walk by and smell the food. And it was your traditional kind of Filipino food that not a lot of people were familiar with. And next thing you know, they started joining, and they kind of turned that one grill into a necessity to get like 5 or 6 different grills. And instead of just coming out there to hang out, I kind of turned into a little tailgate chef out there in the lots. And now it's turned to one massive party with a purpose, if you will.
Real quick, George, I was going to ask you, how long have you been doing the tailgates now?
So I got season tickets back in 2001. So I've been tailgating at FedEx since 01. The tailgate at the size we've been rolling that since about 2005. But I haven't missed a home game actually, I've missed one home game since 2001, and that was to spend the holidays with my then girlfriend, now wife. So I think I get a little bit of a slack for that one.
Miss tailgate, 100%. I was going to say, I've been to Ted's tailgates before. They're delicious. My favorite part about his tailgates is he always has a theme for the visiting team coming in. He always kind of picks the menu ahead of time. Okay. Ted, how do you kind of put that together? How do you put the menu together? Do you think about it in advance? Do you have it planned during the off season? How long does it take for you to put together a menu for your tailgate?
Great question, George. And everyone always asks me, when's the menu coming out? It doesn't come out until the week of, because I have to find stuff that's fresh. I've got to find stuff that I can actually get here. Other than when we played the Jaguars last year, I can't get gator fresh. So I had to have gator flown in. We did gator sausage. When we play the Saints, I always get boudin sausage. We'll do turduckens. We'll do just a bunch of stuff from Louisiana that I've got to order ahead of time. But typically that week, I go to several stores Monday morning and see what I can find that I can recreate. And luckily, I have every single one of my menus saved over the past 20 plus years. So I've got a lot to fall back on, but there's always new stuff I want to try.
Love that.
No doubt. How many plates are we talking about on average? How many people are you expecting to need to feed on a weekly basis?
Well, the most we've had out there is 750 for a playoff game. Last week we had, I want to say it was about 275. At this point, we're turning people away. The crew has grown and shrunk and is starting to grow again. And it's not just me. I've got a group of other Washington fans that are behind me that help me pull this party off. The problem is, over the years, as we have done poorly and as past ownership kind of scared people off, it went from having 7 people cooking beside me to now 2 to 3 tops. And much like restaurants that just haven't been staffed, I don't want people to have a bad time. So we're capping it at that point. And if you don't make the cut, I just hope you make it next time once that RSVP opens up, because I want to make sure everyone has a good time versus accommodating everybody and then they all just have a subpar time.
I know you do it also to raise money. Tell us a little bit about that, Ted.
So last year we raised nearly $8,000 for breast cancer. This year we're raising money for lung cancer. Over the years, we've adopted different charities each year. So Ryan Kerrigan blessed me by helping me out with a van that the NFL Network fixed up for me, which is basically a mobile kitchen. I've been able to cook Christmas meals for the homeless Christmas morning. We did a leukemia lymphoma drive where we were literally swabbing people's cheeks because the commander's allowed to do that draft,
I
and
remember
working
that.
with Logan Sauce,
Mhm.
local family sausage company, makes amazing stuff. And we did a cookout at Nats Park, all to try and find people that are, blood donor matches. So each year we support several charities, and we like to say we party with a purpose out in the lots, but it's not just in the lots. It's really all over the area. And from my standpoint, it's amazing what the players do when they live here, right? I helped
Yeah.
Nick Sun with loads of love, but Nick is no longer here anymore. But there's still a lot of people in our area that need help, and we live here, our home. So really, we should take it upon ourselves to give back, not these football players that are here for sometimes just a cup of coffee.
Ted, you mentioned how the numbers may have dwindled some since the height of tailgating 10, 15 years ago, maybe. Can you feel it coming back? Can you
Oh,
feel
it's
the
definitely coming
juice
back.
starting to come back?
I turned away, and I'm not exaggerating, over 400 people this past week.
Yeah.
And people want to come back. I mean, the second the Harris ownership group took over last year, you had people still kind of on the fence at that point because they weren't sure what kind of impact they could potentially make. And we still had the old Rivera regime here. So now that we've got Jaden here, now that the Harris group has actually had a chance to really put their stamp on this team, people are coming back, and they're coming back in droves. And there's still the holdouts that say, I'm never going to call them the C word or whatever it may be. They're still coming back too. So it's just going to be a matter of time before we're all, I don't want to say one big happy family, maybe one happy dysfunctional family at a
Absolutely.
stadium that is kind of, oddly named at this point, but
Yep.
they're coming, man.
I think we'll take that.
Absolutely. All right. So, Doug, you want to jump into our top five
Yes.
items? Go
I
ahead, Doug.
I asked you both to come up with your top favorite and your 5 least favorite tailgate items. Okay. Ted, you're the guest. We'll start with you.
So being theme, being DC, I've got to go with a half smoke. To me, it's got to be a Logan sausage half smoke with chili and cheese on it. I got to do a TV show with Emeril Lagasse, and he tried to make half smokes. And I love Chef, but he doesn't hold a candle to what they do here in DC. And that's got to be number one for me.
What's the key to a good half smoke?
You got to have that bite to it.
Yeah.
It's got to have that bite. And some people will stab the half smoke because they're not sure if it's cooked, and they'll use a thermometer, and you let all that juice out. And you don't get that crispy bite. It's the wrong way to do it. You know how to do it. When we do it, we poach them in some chicken stock. That way, it's cooked all the way through, and then we'll throw it on the grill and get some color on it and crisp it up after the fact. But at no point in time are we letting all those good juices flow out of that thing.
Sounds amazing, actually.
Number one for you, George. What do you got?
It's a tried and true method. No one's really going to be disappointed by this, but buffalo wings, man, they're so versatile. You can have them in any different flavor. You could have them spicy. You could have them sweet. You could have, whatever mambo sauce on top of them. I'm a big buffalo wings guy.
My only problem with buffalo wings is I like mine super crispy.
Yeah, double fried.
Yeah, got to be a double fried for sure. I've got here on mine crab cake sliders.
Ooh,
Like a good crab cake slider. I like when I'm at the tailgate, I like to be able to hold it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not necessarily having to worry about it getting sloppy or falling all over the place. So first thing on my list, crab cake sliders. All right, Ted, what else we bringing to the cookout here?
So my number one rule, if possible, is less to clean up. I love the buffalo wings because you got bones and everything else. So it's the only problem I have. So less for my crew to clean up, less stuff for you guys to have to use utensils for. You know, you want to get your hands dirty. To me, I got to have a nice burger, a nice juicy burger. We use pepper jack cheese when we're putting them on there, but we'll actually keep the burgers nice and juicy because we keep them in a beef broth bath, kind of with a little base there. And then we'll actually take a blowtorch and torch the cheese on top when you're pulling it off. So a nice burger with really whatever toppings you can possibly think of.
George, do you usually have a blowtorch at your tailgates?
I do not actually. No, I do not do that actually.
Get the
But
game up, kid.
it's something to know. Actually, what I do though, I do smoke meats, and I do use a blowtorch to get the sawdust kind of going, get that little smoke with the wood over there. But I don't do it as eloquently as Ted does. But the way I approach these top 5 things to bring to a tailgate, I had my mentality was bringing it to a tailgate, right? So what would I bring to a tailgate? And my number 2 would be libations. I think you have to bring the party to the group. You have to bring some sort of alcoholic drink, a beer. Nobody wants someone mooching off your beverages. No one wants them mooching off your shots. It's also kind of cool to kind of bring something that's special to you. Like, this is my favorite shot, and bring it to a guest that way as well. So that's why I like bringing libations to the party.
George, I have on my list spiked water bottle. So
Okay, I like that.
so I'm there
Same
with you.
mindset. I love it.
Yes.
Feeling it. Yeah.
All right. I wanted to get some sides in. I love a good pasta salad. I'll be bringing pasta salad. I know we talked about utensils. That's okay. Pasta salad a must. There's 4 or 5 different kind of pasta salads I like. I like the cold pasta salads. If it's hot outside, I'm not necessarily putting egg in, although sometimes I don't mind that. But outdoors, probably looking at maybe like a light vinaigrette dressing on the pasta salad. All right, Ted, what else you got for us?
So just because we're going themed again and we're talking sides, we always try and do a Redskins potato salad throughout the years.
Yes.
I know that's not a name anymore, but hey, you still got to throw it back and pay homage to, you know, what we were in the past. And a nice potato salad you can do out there just goes a long way.
There is a quarter of the fan base that wishes we were the Redskin potatoes right now. Put a potato on the helmet.
I might come off as basic, but I'm very similar to Ted. I like a potato salad, but maybe I'm basic. I like an Amish potato salad. You guys know what I'm talking about? The kind of
Little
sweet
mustard,
thing?
right?
A
With
little
the
mustard.
mustard
I like
in
that a
there.
lot. That's delicious. But since he named that, I'll go a different direction. I'll go macaroni and cheese. If you got a macaroni and cheese, a little bread crust on top, with multiple cheeses together, a little crunch, I like that as well. Very good. Delicious.
That I will check off mac and cheese from my list. I was going to bring 2 sides to the party. Ted, what's the best way to make a mac and cheese? You have a preference? I know George just mentioned the breadcrumbs on top. I'm not necessarily a breadcrumbs on top guy. How do you like to make it?
So I like to make the mac and cheese, but then stick it in the smoker afterwards so it can actually get some of that smoke inside it. And I'll try and use a nice smoked Gouda on top of a couple other cheeses to get that flavor inside there. Because mac and cheese, if you're not doing it, it can be one note. I do like the crust on top. That bring back the blowtorch. We got to get you one, George. Let me know, and I'm more than happy to hook you up. But I like a little texture in there too. And I made mac and cheese for the family in Florida one time. They don't do spicy, but a little bit of cayenne goes a long way in some mac and cheese.
I can see that.
Getting all the tips today, George. We'll remember these on my list. Final 5 here. Gotta have a little something sweet. I'm bringing brownies with me to the cookout.
It's a good call. Yeah, I like brownies a lot.
Ted, what's last on your top 5 here to bring?
We used to always make funnel cakes in a lot, and I
yeah.
actually used to deliver funnel cakes to Clinton Portis and the family. I used to have a cooler scooter that had an engine in it, and I would ride it around FedEx and dropped just foil trays of funnel cakes. And they always made sure I brought them 2 trays out to the parking lot and the players lot. And that to me has got to be a must-have when you're out there tailgating. If you got a fryer, you can do funnel cakes, no problem.
God, I love funnel cakes.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, brownies sound delicious. I would love a good brownie, especially when I'm having my libations like I was talking about before. But I think a good watermelon goes a long way too, especially during the hot and fall part of the season. Look, nice little slice, walk around with it in hand. It's pretty good. I like that as well.
I had on here that we would talk about our least favorites, but I feel like We did such a great job of talking about the good stuff. I hate going in the wrong direction. So let's leave the cookouts there. Let's get on to the game. There's a big game tonight. Ted, it feels like this is one of those in a season where wins and losses will be what they are. I think we have certain realizations of what the team is at this point. But if they were to pull out a win tonight, it feels like it changes the trajectory of the season. George was talking the other day on the podcast about, breaking these things down into quarters, 4-game seasons. Man, this would be a big one.
It would be huge. I mean, the Bengals are 0-2, but they always seem to go 0-2 to start the season.
That's right.
But we all know who the Bengals are. They're a perennial playoff team. Are we, quote unquote, recalibrating? Or are we actually, a couple steps ahead like maybe the Nationals are at this point? And I think tonight's game is going to really be a true test of that.
It's interesting they've used that recalibrate a little bit. We've talked about it here on the show. It's interesting. It would have been easier for them to come out and say, listen, we turned over 65% of the roster. This is a rebuild. They continue to say recalibration. To me, it feels like it makes them live up to a bit of a higher standard than it would be if they were using the word rebuild.
I agree with you. I mean, in my mind, this year isn't either. It's an evaluation year. It's an evaluation year for Adam Peters to understand what he has in the leftovers from the past regime, because he can't just cut everyone and start off from scratch completely, and what he needs to focus on down the road. If Brandon Coleman is truly our left tackle, then that answers a ton of questions, and we can focus on other things in this draft. If Emmanuel Forbes is a bust or not, that answers a lot of things in that secondary. And unfortunately, right now, we kind of see which way it's leaning. But I don't know where we are yet. But all I know is I like what I'm seeing so far from Jaden, because so far he has taken several steps forward each quarter he's been in. Not even just game, each quarter. Because if you look at the first half, when he got the wind knocked out of him, to the second half, he started finally looking and progressing through his routes. And he wasn't doing that prior. And for me, if I see him just take a couple steps forward, he's eventually going to take a step back. He's eventually going to turn the ball over. But if I see him taking some steps forward in other parts of this team, making those same steps and strides, then I'm good.
And Ted, going along with that, what are your general takeaways on Cliff Kingsbury and the offense? It's been a hot topic over the past 2 weeks. It seems that they're insulating Jaden Daniels a lot, giving him short throws and easy throws to kind of build some confidence there. Are you happy with the fact that we're moving the ball, or do you want to see some more exponential growth and more shots? Because that was Jaden Daniels' strength in college. What are your thoughts on that?
I need to see some more shots, and not talking down the field. I'm talking intermediate shots. I mean, we lead the league in passes at the line of scrimmage. I mean, it's getting a little ridiculous. I need to see Kingsbury show me the 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets that he had during preseason and apparently in practice this week against Trey Hendrickson. I mean, I need to make sure that he can, A, protect Jaden from the just harms that are out there for opposing teams, and then somewhat protect Jaden from himself to a degree. And so far, I haven't seen that from Cliff.
It's interesting. George, a friend of the show, Tej Smith, analytics guy, he says here, I'll read it. The Commanders are first in EPA per play outside of the red zone and third in success rate outside of the red zone. They've had bad red zone variances so far. It would be very fun to watch their offense tonight. And I replied, now we're talking. Also, the team is 5th in plays run inside the red zone. So at some point, something's got to give. I think the offense has been criticized too much, as I really do think they've tried to bring him along nice and slowly. You can kind of see, as you're saying, Ted, not only is he making improvements, but they're opening up the playbook a little bit more. And I thought you could really see that in the second half of last week's game. We know that they've got 2 premier receivers. It feels like T. Higgins is back tonight. I think that's been said. I'm not sure whether Forbes has played. Have either one of you seen whether he's officially been ruled in or out?
I don't think he's officially out, but okay. I can't see him playing tonight.
That's what I was checking week 4 is what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. And either way, even if he was out there, 2 guys, tough to defend. We understand what the defense has been up against with receivers. And frankly, if you look at the schedule, they've got plenty of good receivers still yet to come, which is why I liked kind of what they did last week. And I would think it's what they'll do this week, Ted. They ran the ball really effectively and didn't get away from it. You know, in years past, we'd have run the ball effectively, and then all of a sudden we're not running it anymore. Not only are they effective at running the ball, but it eats up clock and keeps that defense and those receivers off the field. Ted, what do you kind of think will be the key to success tonight?
I mean, you said it, Doug. The Pats gained 170 yards on the ground against them. The Chiefs got a buck 40. I mean, they've got the 26th ranked. These were last week's stats, but the 26th ranked rush defense and the second ranked pass defense. So let's not try and fit a square peg into a round hole here. We know what they're not good at. BJ Hill is hurt. Sheldon Rankins is hurt. Their defensive line is banged up. Let's take what we're good at and just shove it down their throats. Give it to B-Rob. Almost 8 yards a carry. Had a career high last week. Let's use Eckler more. You know, let's actually just give a chance to get this offense moving. What linemen like doing is run blocking, not pass blocking, right? Maybe that'll cut down on some of those just boneheaded false start penalties, offensive penalties, and let's keep the ball out of what they're good at, out of the Bengals offense's hands. Let's keep it out of Joe Burrow's hands, T. Wiggins, you know, Jamar Chase. Just they've got a ton of weapons on offense. Let's just keep them on the bench.
Ted, I know you're a diehard. You follow this team closely. What's your take on Terry McLaurin? I know he's a fan favorite. We love him. We want him to be prosperous in our team. But it seems like it's Brian Robinson's probably our best offensive weapon right now. How do we incorporate Terry McLaurin? Do you see him shaking out of this funk right now? How do we incorporate him in the offense? What are your overall takes on him?
I mean, Riley Captain and I were talking about this on our show, and Terry has started slow the beginning of the seasons pretty much past couple of years. This isn't something that's kind of new. And Dan Quinn publicly saying that he wants to move Terry around and to get Terry involved more, feel that that's a shot across the bow to Cliff Kingsbury to maybe kind of juice up this college offense, if you will, that the Bengals were calling this. And we'll see what actually happens. But who knows that if you go back and you look at the film, I know you guys go watch the All 22, Terry has been open. But there have been times where I love the fact that Jaden's not just trying to force it. And earlier on in that Bucks game, I felt that he was trying to force things to Terry. That deep bomb to Terry coming right out of half, I don't think should have gone to him. But I think they just tried to force it at that point. I think Terry's going to eventually get his, especially now that Noah Brown's out there and there's another receiver that other defenses potentially have to respect more. And I also think Zach Ertz is going to open it up more for Terry because Zach, healthy, is a good intermediate threat. But Kingsbury has to show that he's going to dial those routes up for defenses to truly want to respect it.
Eckler looks healthy again, too. I hope that they will be giving him more looks today. Ted, you brought it up. I'm curious how you and the Rally Captain put together the DMV Mess Hall podcast.
So I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while. I had a show with Larry Michael, Redskins Nation. I was on Fox 5 twice a week. And then all of a sudden 2020 hit and it changed the world for all of us. I got a lot to say and I just needed someone to actually not agree with me and kind of be my counterpoint. And Rally is a glass half full. I am more the glass is what it is to a degree. And we've got a good vibe together. He's my brother from another mother, and he's the feet on the street. I mean, he goes to every game home and away. And I love talking about that aspect of it, just being fans of this team, but also me being a little more grounded and him being a little more, you know, up in the clouds in regards to our projections, just makes it a fun time. And we love recording the show. It's twice a week during football season and looking forward to hopefully, you know, recapping a victory Tuesday this week, but we'll see how it goes.
You mentioned it briefly. I'm curious, everybody fans a little differently. How would you say that that you balance being critical of the team and yet still, you know, rooting for the home team?
I will always root for this team, but having been a fan for this team my entire life, realism has set in, right? Having been on TV and still go on Fox 5, I'm not Sonny Jurgensen. I'm not going to say we're winning no matter what. I'm being realistic about it. And I've gotten threats because of it. I've had people take pictures in front of my home and different things of that nature because I picked us to lose against the Cowboys or just different things like that over time. But to me, if you want someone to improve, then you have to be real with them. And that's what I feel, right? If I want this team to improve, I want this franchise to improve, I'm not just going to kiss their butt. I need them to know and understand what they're doing wrong. And in my opinion, how they fix it, whether it's with the on the field product, whether it is the product inside that stadium, or whether it's just in general for the franchise. There are things over the years that I have not agreed with. And maybe that's why I'm not winning awards from this team and so on and so forth. But I will never shy from telling them when they do wrong, but I will also commend them when they do right. And this new ownership group has gotten a ton right. And I pissed them off last year when I feel that they got some wrong when they raised our season ticket prices. And I know I didn't make some friends over there because of it. But hey, that's what you get when it's Tailgate 10. I'm not going to be, like I said, Sonny Jurgensen or just a diehard homer that lets them piss on their leg and say, oh, it must be raining.
Well, thank you for advocating for us. I appreciate that. You also piqued my interest with Rally Captain, having his feet on the grounds. I know your feet are on the ground as well. What are some tangible things that the team has done so far so well, the new ownership group, and kind of bringing that positive environment to the fan base? And what is one thing they still need to improve, in your opinion?
Positive thing is they've brought magnometers to the stadium. They've made a ton of stadium improvements that we just haven't had. I mean, the old regime was handicapped because the old owners didn't want to spend money. They're spending money and making improvements to try and make our game day better. The problem is it's like an old house that they just let decay for 2 decades. And now they bought it. And all of a sudden, when they went through their walkthrough, they didn't realize that, oh my gosh, that subfloor is actually horrible. They've got to do so many things now to fix it that it can't be done in a day. I mean, things that still need to be fixed. I mean, I go back to the stadium. I mean, from a season ticket holder perspective, we have just a few perks. And this is something that doesn't make them happy when I say it, but being realistic, it is a bad investment to be a season ticket holder for this team, because typically come November, you can get tickets for less than face value unless it's a division game. So I am spending more money as a season ticket holder than if I were to just get them in the open market on StubHub after the fact. But some of the perks I enjoy are sitting next to the people I sit next to for the past 15 years.
Yeah.
And there's also Washington Gold benefits that we're supposed to get. It's not consistent. It's actually worse as a season ticket holder to use those Washington Gold lanes when you're inside the stadium because they're not monitored. This past week, when we were there for the Giants game, there's no one checking to make sure that you're a season ticket holder to actually go in this fast lane, whether it was to get inside the stadium or just to get concessions. And maybe that's just short-staffed or what, but fix it. I don't care how you do it. Just fix it, because it's something that we're paying for that we're just flat out not getting.
George, on our pick'em this week, you took the Bengals 23-27. Is that still how you feel now?
I do. I think so. The spread is 7.5. I think a lot of people think the Bengals are going to blow us out. I think Washington's going to play keep away. I think Washington's going to try to run the ball. I think they're going to try to shortchange and nickel and dime the Bengals up and down the field with short passes that we talked about. I think there's going to be few opportunities for the Bengals to score. They will score because they have the explosive components on their team, but I think it's going to be a closer game than people think. I think it's going to be 27-23 Bengals, in my opinion.
I did the same thing you did, George. I went 23-26. I do think that is the strategy for this team, is to keep it close. Those things can go either way. It's a coin flip. It's at Cincinnati. That's just how I think it'll go. I wish it didn't. Ted, what is the outcome in your mind for this thing tonight?
I hate to bring it down, but I'm thinking it's going to be 28-24 Bengals. Just being realistic, they can't afford to go 0-3 to start the season. Their offense is too high powered for our secondary to stop. And we haven't had a pass rush. Right. I'm just concerned about not being able to get to Joe. And Joe isn't looking to run the ball with his legs. He's looking to extend the play. And if he extends the play versus the secondary, it's going to be a long day for St. Juice, San Ristil, Quan, and those guys back there. So unfortunately, I think Cincinnati might take this one.
It is a rough matchup for us in the secondary. It's a rough matchup for us on the edge. Hendrickson's been fantastic this season. That makes me a little concerned. But if they can keep this thing a coin flip down the stretch, at least it will be exciting. You know, so that's George and I say all the time, as long as they're competing and the product is fun to watch, like that to me is winning this year's, and I hope that's what we get tonight. Do not want us to see us getting blown out on a Monday night. Sounds terrible. Ted, this was great, man. I don't know why we haven't done this before, but this was a real pleasure. Appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure was mine, boys. I'm here whenever you need me. Just let me know.
Yes, we will hit you up again for sure. Thanks, man. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks,
You guys too. Take care.